tell me a little bit about this beautiful 868 vineyard. I can't get over just the glory of it.
Well, it's we've owned the vineyard for about 10 years. We started in 2011, and it's three families who kind of came together to put together our vision of this beautiful place that really focuses on wine and nature, art and music. And that's what we're all about here. And it's 120 acres with about 22 acres under vine.
Wow. Well, it is just so beautiful, and just the setting with this gorgeous old home. Tell me a little bit about how this property came to be and how you acquired it.
So the house that's on property is original to the 1840s, and it's been a family farm for many years. We bought it from the family that owned it since 1952. And what's been really fascinating for me is there have been three other families who have come back as elderly people to talk to me about when they were on the farm and what their farm tours were like when they were this big and this big. So we've really had this great connection to history, which makes this place just even more special. So the house is original to the 1840s, the stone walls are all original, and the dairy barn is also equally as old. And so we struggled with the name for a long time, and then it occurred to us that one of the defining features of the property here is our hilltop out there. And so from the tasting room, you see some of our vineyards, but not really very many. And if you walk up to the hill, which is at 868 feet above sea level, so there's the 868, you can look out over a carpet of 39,000 grapevines.
Well, Nancy, I love that you serve these chocolates with your wine. So tell me a little bit about the chocolates, about the wine that you're pouring.
Absolutely. We've been doing our chocolate truffle tasting since we opened, because what is there not to love about chocolate paired with wine? And it's been a lot of fun over the years because we change flavors, and as our wines have evolved, our chocolates have evolved as well. And they're all made here in-house. We have our staff makes them.
Nice.
And so it's a lot of fun for our team as well. So what I chose today for us to taste was our Petit Verdot. So Petit Verdot is a really jammy grape.
Yes.
And it's a dry wine, but it's full of fresh fruit flavors. And we've paired this with our milk chocolate truffle rolled in Oreo crumbs. So we're gonna pair it with this chocolate right there. And so I'll pour some in your glass, and it's got that beautiful dark purple color.
Oh, yeah.
That's just so evocative of the flavors that you're gonna experience in there. So it's gonna be a lot of deep plum flavors and some blackberry, and the flavors are really gonna enhance that chocolate. So what we tell our customers to do is to try the wine so that you taste the wine by itself, and then to try the chocolate, to take a bite of the chocolate, and then another sip of the wine. So you get the experience of the wine without the chocolate, and then the amplified experience of the wine with the chocolate.
Love it.
So,
All
yes.
right, so let's try this wine. I love Petit Verdot.
I do too. It's one of my favorites. Absolutely one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to have all of those wonderful dark fruit flavors that are really going to enhance the chocolate.
Oh.
So,
Well, I love it. All right. So milk chocolate with Oreo crumbs.
yes, exactly.
Really good.
And of course, the Petit Verdot can be served with things other than chocolate, but the chocolate is really one of my favorite things. It's
nice.
The other thing that I pair the Petit Verdot with is a fire pit, because to me, this is a conversation wine. So after dinner, you might go outside and maybe you've got a little jacket on because it's fall,
Yeah.
and the fire pit right there and a glass of Petit Verdot, and that's a beautiful pairing as well.
Oh, I love it.